Tonight, the Target 12 investigators are once again taking an in-depth look into the state of our schools. It's a move that came as a shock to many school leaders.
State lawmakers approving a continued freeze on spending for school construction projects. We've learned there's a total of about $600 million in backlogged projects as a result of the freeze that started 3 years ago. Now, with classrooms left to crumble for another year, school districts are asking the state for money labeled emergencies only.
Let's get to Target 12 investigator Walt Buteau with what he's uncovered about the school construction moratorium and the impact it's having on your children's schools.
Plans were dashed across the state when lawmakers decided to continue a freeze on funding for certain vital improvements to local schoolhouses. Narragansett was hoping to fund athletic field renovations and expand its career and technical programs. Half the schools in Providence are more than 50 years old, and district leaders tell Target 12 hundreds of millions of dollars in potential improvements were in the works there. In Pawtucket, where this school bus-sized 50-year-old boiler is still expected to heat Goff Junior High, there was a 10-year plan in place for $243 million in improvements. Now, all of those and other projects are on hold. Target 12 has learned 5 districts have asked the state's Board of Education for emergency funding. Among the improvements districts say they need to make right now: upgrades to bring the Bristol-Warren Regional School District up to fire code, improving ventilation and air quality in Narragansett, repairing leaking roofs at some Smithfield schools, bathroom repairs in East Providence, and the replacement of 100-year-old ceilings in some of Pawtucket's schools. It was in Pawtucket where Target 12 got a look at the district's deteriorating schools and highest priority safety projects. The state funding, if approved, would shore up this crumbling ceiling that hangs over hallways often filled with children. But the head of the State Association of School Committees tells us the Band-Aid approach will not bring your local schools into the future.
We now have another crisis looming in terms of the infrastructure, and that's something that cries out for some sort of solution to guarantee that every student has an adequate place to learn.
The Rhode Island Department of Education's public schoolhouse assessment states it would take $1.8 billion to bring all of our schools up to good condition. One idea under consideration is to use 1 cent from the 7-cent sales tax on every dollar and dedicate it to school improvement projects. Ryan Pearson, who chaired the state Senate task force that studied the issue, tells Target 12 that would raise about $130 million a year.
The difference would be consistent, it'd be predictable, and it'd be money that would be there that would go directly to this building authority, and the money wouldn't get chopped up into the general budget elsewhere.
Pearson tells us the sales tax approach would eliminate the need to borrow in the future, but school leaders from here to South County tell us they need $50 million in emergency spending now. The Department of Education will vote next week on whether or not to approve that emergency funding. With the Target 12 investigators in Providence, Walt Buteau, Eyewitness News.
Our coverage on the state of our schools doesn't end here. We'll tell you how the fate of the state's crumbling classrooms hinges on who will become Rhode Island's next governor. We're going to have that story for you tomorrow on Eyewitness News this morning, starting at 4:30 right here on WPRI 12.